Um, what the thing for me with animation was, it was obviously something I really loved, and I loved to draw when I was a kid. But because the Don Bluth studio was in Dublin, it kind of made it seem possible to be an animator in Ireland. It didn't seem like magic because everybody knew somebody who worked in the Don Bluth studio. It's a small country, and it was a big deal in the 1980s that there was a big animation studio in Ireland. So I think that was really it. It was something I was always interested in, and I was a member of Young Irish Filmmakers here in Kilkenny, and it was just something I was always interested in. I was usually more interested in comic books, but more or less comic books and animation at the same time. The thing that happened for us was that, like a blessing in disguise maybe, the Don Bluth studio left Ireland the year before I graduated from college as an animator. And I went to the college that he had set up. And by then I wasn't so impressed with the films he was making. I loved The Secret of Nim and I loved The American Tale and those movies at the start. But by the time he moved the studio, by the time he took his studio back to America, I was ready to try and do something different and try and find a way to make a animation that was uniquely Irish. And instead of Irish people just working on movies for American studios, I had a dream about us making our own movies and finding our own voice. And that's when I kind of became more interested in Japanese animation and in European animation, and I started to think that it would be really cool if Ireland could have its own kind of tradition of animation in the same way. We were interested in mythology anyway, and we wanted to create a story based around the kind of history as far as we know it and the legends around the Book of Kells. We were really looking to put the structure, the kind of universal structure of the hero's journey that's common to most mythology in place. And so in a way we looked at Irish mythology, but with a view to making a kind of universal film. For me, really, The Secret of Kells was my first film. I made some short films, but they were more like experiments or failures in some ways. They were never really complete films, I found. And The Secret of Kells was something I've been developing since we first set up the studio. For me, it was a strange experience because most of my 20s went into The Secret of Kells. I spent most of my... I swore I would finish it by the age of 30, and I just about managed it. So from the age of 23 to 30, every time I had a chance and I wasn't working on a commercial or something else for the studio, I tried to keep the Secret of Kells alive as an idea. And so when we finally got into production, it was like a chance to finally work on only what I wanted to work on full time. A definite choice for us to try and keep it representing the times as truthfully as possible, representing what the people at the time would have believed and how they would have seen the world, especially a young boy. I mean, he'd grown up in a monastery, but it was also the time in Ireland when there was a very big blend between the old pagan beliefs and what at the time was new in the Christian. So I think in Ireland we had a very a kind of a fluid mixture of the different religions, and I wanted to reflect that. And to be honest, I was much more interested in making a statement about art and culture and the importance of that than I was about making any kind of statement about religion. It happened to be that it was set in the Middle Ages and it was about the Book of Kells, which is Ireland's national treasure, and that was the art that we wanted to celebrate. And the fact is that it's the transcript of the four Gospels, but it's certainly, in terms of its design style, is drawing on older traditions. For Aisling, we realised we needed a strong female presence. We decided we didn't want Brendan to really have a love interest, so I thought more about the relationship I had with my younger sister and the way she was kind of always trying to outdo me at everything. And so I kind of tried to give Aisling some of the personality of my younger sister and the relationship that we had when we were growing up. In every studio we kind of had supervisors, the artist that we'd find who was really good at animating that character. And so Alessandra in our studio, an Italian animator, was the main Aisling animator. And then in Belgium there was a young girl, Marie-Laure, and she'd been to college with me and she was the supervisor there. She was kind of the main Aisling animator in Belgium. And the same in Hungary and in Brazil and everywhere that work was done, we kind of tried to find someone who had a feeling for the character, and then it seemed to be easier anyway. It's already 2 years since I finished Secret of Kells, so sometimes I feel a little bit strange talking about it. When we're in the middle of production, you have a different perspective, and even for me, it's quite interesting. That's why I kept the blog. I kept the blog up through the whole production from 2005, and I still keep it up to date because I know at some point I'm going to look back, and people like yourselves who are trying to get something going are going to have the same experience, and it might be interesting for you to have a resource like that where you can go and read a blog about someone who's been through that journey. It's a story. It's a story I'm more and more proud of. I've been working on it with a writer called Will Collins, an Irish writer that was recommended to us by the Irish Film Board, and it's about a little girl who's actually a silkie, and a silkie is a creature from Irish and Scottish folklore that can transform from a human into a seal, and she's kind of, this little girl is like the last link between the time of fairies and folklore in Ireland and modern times. And the film is set in modern times, and the little girl and her brother have to find their way back to the sea, and on the way back to the sea they kind of discover all these creatures from the folklore that's been forgotten, and they're fading back into the landscape. So on one hand it's a story about two children trying to find their way home, and on the other hand it's a little bit about how the old beliefs and folklore are being forgotten a little bit in Ireland. The inspiration for Song of the Sea came from the research that we were doing for Secret of Kells, and I started to feel a little bit sad that even when I was growing up I was more interested by American comic books than our own mythology, and I felt that this is probably something that's common all over the world, that with globalization that our cultures are becoming all the same, and there's some really positive things, and some things that it's a pity to lose, and that's where the inspiration came for Song of the Sea. But for me, as I said, Secret of Kells is really my first film. I don't really have any plan to only make films about this type of thing. It's just where the inspiration is for me and where the passion is for me at the moment is exploring those ideas, and I think that it's what makes sense. If you're going to make an independent film, you have to deal with things that are unique to your experience and also something you're passionate about, because you have to live with them for so long. Even when it's finished, you can't just forget about it. You have to stand beside it and say, this is what I did and this is why I did it, and be proud. So if you're going to make something, everybody will pay you to make some bubblegum. But if you're going to make something yourself and put a lot of time into it, it has to be something that at least you find that you're passionate about. So that's why I think I'm playing in the same water that I was with Secret of Kells, because I'm still not finished with dealing with those things. For me, each movie I hope will look similar and will be clearly coming from us, but at the same time it should have its own voice. So I think what we have done so far with Song of the Sea isn't really the final style, and I think we're going to find something more unique before we're finished the development process. Yeah, right now we're doing different projects. Sometimes we're doing some pilot for TV series. For Disney, we're doing some flash animation on the Top Cat feature for Anima Studio in Mexico. We make commercials, and I'm making a comic book with the writer of the other comics I made. So we just do little bits of everything. I want to say right now that Ulfangs is something we're proud of in the studio, and Adrian Merishaw, who was one of the directors with Alan Holly, he will be the art director on Song of the Sea. So we're really happy to see him making his own movies, and hopefully someday we'll make a feature film with Adrian and Alan too. So it's really nice to see more young directors coming up behind myself and Nora. So we're excited about that too. I have a good story about that. I was on the red carpet at the Oscars, and I was speaking to the guys who directed The Princess and the Frog, and also to Bill Croyer, who's in charge of that part of the Academy, the animated features branch, and the very famous animator Dewey directed Fern Gully, for example, and we could just stand on the red carpet and nobody bothered us because nobody knew who we were, and it was quite nice to be anonymous with all the celebrities.